Thursday morning. It is June the 30th. I'm first warning meteorologist Eric Burris. This is Coffee Talk. We get together 7 days a week in the morning, chat about what's going on in the world of weather, hopefully getting your day started off on the right note and making sure you are educated on what is to come today. The top two things that we're monitoring, of course, we want to preview your 4th of July weekend forecast, which is unofficially starting. Why not start it today? We'll be looking at fireworks, we'll be looking at the weekend as a whole, and of course we'll be looking at your Independence Day individually. Then we're also tracking the tropics, seeing what's doing out there. There are several systems that we are monitoring, and of course, if there was the threat of any of them, we would be very much diving into that. But I'm happy to say that there is not a threat to Central Florida from anything, at least tropically. That said, though, it's kind of an ominous shot over at the Kennedy Space Center, isn't it? Look at that. Lots of layering with the clouds. I mean, let's just bring that full for a minute. That's wild. What you're looking at on the left, that is Launch Complex 39A. That's where, of course, Falcon 9 goes up to the International Space Station, does other manned missions. But if you look just next to it, and I know I've pointed it out. So there's 39A, at least as it stands right now. But that, the crane and all that work there, that is actually the work for what was formerly known as the BFR, now Starship. Yeah, the next generation of space travel from the Kennedy Space Center. So some kind of neat construction going on out there, but some really neat cloud formations. Temperatures out the door are in the mid to upper range of the 70s. I do want to point out that we are tracking, obviously with those clouds, on our first warning live Doppler radar, there are some showers that we're monitoring. The good news is the nastier stuff is way off the shoreline. Most of the rain, as a matter of fact, is off the shoreline. But if we come down toward 192, that's where we're watching some of this rainfall kind of right over Melbourne Beach, Satellite Beach. So just a heads up, it's not a washout of a morning. It's not a washout of a forecast of the day either. Yeah, so here's where we're at today. 10% coverage of showers, especially in the coastal communities this morning. Then later and later and later and later, we'll watch those rain chances on their way up, going to a 50, might even have a 60% coverage of rain. Today we're going to have more rain than we saw yesterday, so just be ready for that. Yesterday wasn't all that active. Frank, good morning to you. Taylor, Shauna, good morning, good morning. Tiffany, Janice, good morning. Ethan, Dawn, how are you? Linda, Taylor, it is gorgeous, isn't it? Kenneth says Atlas rocket. That's over at SLC 41, right? Today is SLC 41. There is a rocket launch today. That's what Kenneth is alluding to, yeah. We were looking at 39A. No rockets scheduled to launch there today. But over from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station side, so a couple of miles away, off of SLC 41, there is an Atlas rocket set to lift off. It's a little later than yesterday. Window opens at 6 p.m. 60% chance of good weather for this one. It is the United States Space Force satellite. So it's a surveillance satellite, which means that more than likely we'll get great footage of the first stage, but as soon as they get into stage separation, there will be no imagery because, of course, of matters of national security, which sounds very cool to say, but is a very important factor to that. So anyway, 60% chance for good weather for this launch. Rain is definitely in the forecast. And you can kind of see, when we look at the day as a whole, that's about when the highest coverage of showers and storms are. Most of that activity should be off toward the west. The big question, of course, is how this plays out in terms of, is there any lingering activity along the Space Coast? Pat, Janice, good morning to you. Hi, everyone. There must be Teflon bubble over our home in Eustis. We have not had any rain, and we need it, but it's still a perfect day in paradise. Barbara, I'm sure these next couple of days we'll be able to get some rainfall moving in your direction for sure. Let's see here. Betty, good morning to you. Rose over on YouTube, good morning. How you doing? April, good morning. Becky, Cheryl, good morning, good morning, good morning. Beth, how are you? Jessica says, give me all the rockets. You know, for a short time yesterday, and this is what is so wild about things, for a short time yesterday, there were 3 rockets, space-ready-ish, on pads. You have Artemis SLS, which is still sitting on 39B. You had on 41 the Atlas V with 4 SRBs, so that thing's going to scream today. And then on 40, you had a Falcon 9. That's pretty cool. 3 orbital class rockets ready to go. That's pretty cool. I don't care who you are. That's pretty cool. Eliza, thank you very much for the kind words. Good morning to you. I appreciate it. Nancy, are those percentages for East Coast, Central, or entire viewing areas? So this is kind of a blanket statement. This is for the entire coverage area. But don't worry, because yes, we are going to break it down hour by hour, county by county, using Futurecast. First off, let's look and see what's doing in terms of temperatures. 80s along the shoreline, 90s from about the metro off toward the west, right? Perfect. Sounds good. Let's get into the rain chances. All right, lunchtime, you can see coastal showers. Notice by about 1, 2 o'clock, still out east, but working their way inland. 4, 5, 6 o'clock, we're starting to see the storms shuffle on to the west, bigger storms out west, but we still have some hints of moisture, some notes of moisture, if you will, out east. So that's where that rocket forecast is a little concerning for the Atlas V. Of course, they're not going to launch into any dangerous weather. And I mentioned this last night when I was on West 2 News at 4. Did you know that rockets can actually create their own lightning? That's why even if there's not a thunderstorm right at the launch pad, you still have very stringent criteria because you're launching this thing at a ridiculously high velocity. And of course, as you do that, there is friction between the rocket, the propulsion, and the actual just air around. That friction creates static electricity, and we have seen over the years where rockets have been struck and thus exploded because of that. So when we talk about the percentages of good weather for launches, it's not like a percentage of rain, but they have criteria. Cumulus cloud rule, anvil top rule, flight through precipitation rule. There's all these very stringent elements that they have. And when I say that, I mean Space Launch Delta 45, the old 45th Space Wing out at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Yukon says it's amazing with all the new players doing with space. Sorry to be critical, but legacy companies are biting the dust. Listen, I think that everybody's going through a transition, right? You've got NASA with their SLS system, severely over budget. That's not a question. And then you've got ULA, United Launch Alliance. They're one of the legacies, which is Boeing and Lockheed. Doing incredible things. You've got SpaceX doing incredible things. Blue Origin's doing incredible things. There's, Firefly. There's all these new players that are coming in, and each one is struggling until they get there, right? And that's just the way that it is. Carol says, seeing a launch never gets old. That's true. Saw the launch from Titusville yesterday. Absolutely thrilling. I love it, right? And then there's another one today. Brian, good morning to you. Back from racing in Ohio. Hope all is well. Hope you're doing well, bud. Rose says, sounds dangerous. Listen, space travel is not a safe thing. It's becoming safe, but it's inherently riding either cargo or people on top of a timed out explosion, right? I mean, think about the first men in space and women in space. They literally took intercontinental ballistic missiles, took out the nuclear warhead, and threw a body on top. The Redstone rocket. I mean, if you think back to all of these old rockets, these were weapons that they transformed into space-faring vehicles. It's amazing stuff. Nancy says, thanks, Eric. Looks like East Volusia might get some for a change. When everyone else is getting rain, we seem to be in a pocket. We definitely are starting to change around the weather pattern a little bit. The pattern is turning a bit stormier because there's an old front just north of us that's kind of fading, but making another deposit of moisture. So while yesterday was like a 30-40% coverage of rain, we're going to be upping that over these next few days' time, frankly, staying fairly active. So that includes today, that includes tomorrow. As a matter of fact, let's just look ahead to our holiday weekend, right? So today, decent chance of storms. Tomorrow, rain chance rises even more. It looks like your Saturday, 60% coverage of showers and storms, and then coming off just a little bit for your Sunday and your Monday. And if you're making plans, by the way, for Independence Day itself, it looks like same exact weather pattern as we are in right now, which is lunchtime and just thereafter watching those showers and storms working off toward the west. And then by 5, 6, 7 o'clock, things start to clear out, which is good for any outdoor activities. So, for example, if you're wanting to launch fireworks, if you're wanting to go to a fireworks display, whether it be Red Hot and Boom, whether it be any of the others around Central Florida, by 8 o'clock, we are gradually clearing things out. Sunset clearing, which is a good thing. It gives us an opportunity to see the show. If you had a chance, would you go up with Dragon and Falcon 9 to the ISS, Eduardo's asking? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Am I in the minority? Stephanie, you showed a graphic the other day about what time sunset is, and it's later the further north. I know the most fireworks locally typically start around 9, but I noticed that when my family members spoke with local fireworks in Jamestown, New York, the majority of them were scheduled at 10. I mean, it makes sense. The later the sunset, the later they have to do their thing. What's wild, though, is how late that gets, right? Like, to me, 9 o'clock is late. I think I fell asleep at 9:15 last night. Granted, I was also watching Star Wars Episode 2, which already wants you to fall asleep a little bit. You know? I don't know. Never, never will I get in a rocket, Rose says. Yeah, there's definitely people that are like that. I get that. Looking like a decent 4th of July. I got tasked with cooking the hot dogs for my neighbor's big party. Bruce, yeah, I think we're good. There will be some showers and thunder showers, but it's, after all, summer in Central Florida, right? Yukon, I would go to space when I can afford it. Hopefully those prices will come down, right? Carol says, I wouldn't go in a rocket. How funny. Tom, do you think Saturday showers will be done by fireworks for Palm Bay? I do. We're kind of in this pattern for a little while now, so I think that we are going to be looking good for fireworks activities. It's also looking good for today if you're wanting to head out to the theme park, SeaWorld, for example. A couple of coastal showers, but showers and thunder showers are kind of bubbling up through the day. Yeah, you'll have to watch early afternoon through about dinner time, and then everything works off to the west and clears us out. So there's going to be a time frame where we've got some rainfall, but at least in terms of like an individual forecast, this is the only one that we really have to be keeping our eyes on, of course, that exact timeline for the Atlas V launch today. But as I mentioned, 4 SRBs, this thing is going to scream off the launch pad. Yeah. So true, my novellas are watching me last night. I fell asleep. Yeah, there you go, Nancy. You know. What are we looking for? Sunday in Ormond by the Sea, more specifically Sunday after 3. I think that you'll be okay. Steve, there'll be some showers and thunder showers up to about 3, and then I think little by little things will be clearing on out. Yeah. Baby Yoda fan. Oh, yeah. Yukon, I don't know anything about that. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. All right, shall we talk a little bit about the tropics, friends? We, of course, have our potential tropical system. This is potential tropical cyclone number 2. What did we say yesterday on Coffee Talk? That, yeah, you know, that as long as it's interacting with land, it's going to struggle to develop. Hurricane Center has continuously said that it could become a tropical cyclone at any time. It is not a tropical cyclone. It is not even a tropical depression. But they continue to say it could become one at any time, and that's true. But I don't think it's going to happen until later today or tomorrow as it pulls away from South America and has the opportunity to get out finally away from land. Land interaction does not do well with tropical systems. It's just the fact, right? So I figured that it wasn't going to be until today that this thing gets its sea legs, so to speak, and that's probably going to happen. Bonnie is the next name on the list. What is interesting is it is expected to pass across Central America in the thinnest geographical location, which means that it probably will not lose its core, which means if it is named in the Atlantic Basin and then traverses Central America into the Pacific Basin, it would keep its Atlantic name. Whereas if you recall, the opposite happened with PTC-1, which eventually became Alex. It lost all of its tropical characteristics over land. Therefore, it was downgraded and then renamed. This one would not be renamed. So interesting little tidbit there. Yeah. The little low that couldn't, Jessica says. Yeah, right? I will wait for a Galaxy-class starship. You're going to have a little bit of waiting to do, though, Kenneth, but that's okay. So you'll wait for NCC 1701-D? You're going to wait for the -D? You wouldn't go for the NCC 1701 or NCC 1701-A? Really? Gonna wait that long? Big question asked before making sure. Flight for Puerto Rico on Saturday. How's the weather going there? I'll check. I don't forecast for there. Tropically, there's going to be some moisture, but nothing too bad. Yeah, Saturday, 30% chance of rain. Sunday, 50% chance of rain. Monday, 30% chance of rain. But that's not my forecast. That's just the weather service. But yeah, Beth, just a little bit of moisture. Nothing too bad. Strange season, Nancy says. This is the second storm to cross the oceans. Well, we've talked about it. As Gary said, it's a quiet hurricane season until one comes over your house. Janice, that's it. That's what Lezak and I were chatting about, right? Kenneth, I understand that. Rose says, I don't even like airplanes. No rockets. Yeah, I can understand that. I'd go for NC 1701 as long as Christopher Pike is captain. Nothing wrong. Hey, Captain Pike. I'll raise a cup of coffee to Captain Pike. All right. So that's what we've got there. Elsewhere in the tropics, there are two additional areas that we are monitoring. Of course, there's the system out in the open waters of the Atlantic that is heading over toward Puerto Rico, but it's not going to develop, we don't think. And then there's a system just off the shoreline of Texas that has a medium chance of formation. Hurricane hunters have been and will continue to be out investigating. They did find an elongated area of low pressure yesterday. It was not enough for an upgrade, but this is Invest 95. Has the chance to develop for sure. Either way, though, it does no different. It just basically means that we are talking about the opportunity to get a bunch of rain. So for Invest 95, it says tomorrow, but this is I just didn't update the graphic. 1:30 a.m. today, there was I didn't check to see because I was in dad mode this morning. Let me see. Did that mission get in there today? Okay, so that mission did not seemingly happen. So 1:30 p.m. today, theoretically, there will be a recon flight, and then into potential tropical cyclone number 2. Again, it says tomorrow, but it should say today. So you've got at 1:30 today, you've got a recon mission heading into the South Caribbean, out near the ABC Islands there. It's United States Air Force WC-130J model. So they're heading on in, and they'll be doing low-level fixes. What's interesting is at 2 o'clock this afternoon, the NOAA P-3 Orion joins them with the tail Doppler. So now you've got the C-130 flying, looking for the low pressure, looking for the winds turning, and then you've got NOAA's Orion, the P-3 in there, looking at internal structure on Doppler radar. So for today, we'll have 2 radars. And that, I think, is going to be the time frame where potential tropical cyclone number 2 has the best kind of time frame for tropical genesis, right? Because it'll be pulling away from South America. And as it continues over towards Central America, we'll be over warm water, we'll be away from land, we'll kind of have the shear at a nice low level. So I think that that's going to be a really good time to sample the environment inside and around the storm system itself. So, yeah. Kenneth, exactly. Constellation class is the original. That's right. I love the nerddom. Yesterday we were nerding about news music. Today we're nerding about starships, the United Federation of Planets. Too funny. We are an intelligent kind of group. Nice to say. I agree with that. It's nice to start the day and be challenged mentally, emotionally. Jean-Luc for me, Becca says. Nothing wrong with that. I'd go up in a rocket and be airsick the whole time. Hey, that's... I think that I'd read somewhere that the RFP, NASA's RFP for the new spacesuits. Seriously, I read this somewhere. I could be way off. NASA is designing new spacesuits for SLS, and so they put out an RFP for manufacturers. And one of the requirements is it has to be able to hold a liter of vomit. Isn't that something? We need you to build us a spacesuit, and here's your long list of things it has to do. One of those items is a liter of vomit. a liter. Don't we use gallons? A gallon of vomit. Gross. The boss is going to yell at me for talking about this. Jessica, does the United States Air Force have multiple WC-130s, or do they fly the same one in multiple times a day? They have multiple, yeah. It's when it comes to the weather folks, the hurricane hunters, there are several. Think about it like this. Between maintenance and, like, right now, for example, they're flying multiple missions into multiple storms, right? So it comes to logistics. You know, they have to move aircraft over to, you know, sometimes forward positions. So St. Croix or the ABCI, you know. So you have to think about, like, right now they're flying direct out of Keesler to get into the Gulf of Mexico. And I don't know where they've positioned down in, it may be St. Croix down there in the Caribbean. But yeah, so there's multiple aircraft to be able to fly multiple. I don't know the exact number. I think it's either 2 or 3. No, NOAA has 2 P3s. I don't know how many the Air Force has, but I know because NOAA's are Kermit and Piggy. Kermit and Miss Piggy. So NOAA has 2 P3s. But in terms of the United States Air Force running their C-130s, maybe they have 4? I don't know that for sure. Though. See, it's one of those things we could look at, but I don't know for sure. Carolyn says it's science, so I know the units. I know, Carolyn. I know. It's just funny. John, I believe it is St. Croix. Yeah, it's. I mean, that's oftentimes their home base. But is that too far? You know, is there another base that they can use that's maybe a little bit closer to the ABCs? I don't know. Anyway, I didn't want my breakfast anyway, Evelyn. I mean, this is just the facts. It's in there somewhere. I don't remember where I read it, but it's there. Anyway, all right, let's check the computer models and see what's doing in the tropics. Stand by. Let me get that loaded. All right, so this is the GFS. And first off, before going too deep, notice that the GFS I'm going to scroll it down so that you can see all the way on the bottom, because that's, of course, the area that we're watching as well. Notice around Texas, South Texas, you see that little white dot. It's not necessarily an area of low pressure, but rather just a lowered area of pressure in a sea of high pressure. So giddy up. We'll roll through time, and you can see kind of heading toward Central America there. There's something, and then out to the right, there's something else. Let me scroll this down even more so you can see it, because we're tracking so far south. All right. So there you go. So you've got the 1005 low. That could be Bonnie. Then out behind it, working into the Caribbean, is something else that does not look to try and form. Moisture around the Yucatan Peninsula. What a surprise. The GFS is doing the GFS's thing. Bringing something perhaps over toward the coastline of Mexico. Okay. .360, 366, 384. So it's trying here, 384. It's trying to lower some pressures off the coastline, but nothing organized. So very cool. All right. Very cool. So yeah, models are not going bonkers on anything. It's fine with me. Let's have a nice little break, right? I don't know. That'll allow us to talk about things like, you know, spacesuits and their capacities. Marissa, yes, there's a launch in the 6 o'clock hour, we think. We'll be watching that chance of rain, too, by the way. Yeah, we're going with a 50% coverage of showers and storms for your Thursday, 60% chance of rain for your Friday and your Saturday, and then kind of starting to dry things out Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, back to normal. Normal's about a 40-50% chance of rain. Rose, did a rocket go up this morning? Looks like it. No, not that we're aware of, unless it was top secret. I don't know. I'm in the mood for some beach time. You and me both. 1 liter is 1,000 cc's, or if you've been in the hospital for surgery, etc. It would be 1 bag of IV fluid. Anything more than that, what happens, right? I know, Kenneth. I know. I'm just being funny. Jessica says, CAGs are going to take a trip up the Bay of Campeche. We'll see. We'll see, right? Oh, man, oh, man. Let's see here. I love that we're still talking about the vomit capacity. I know, right? Audra, isn't it great? Ay. Has there ever been a hurricane hunter that was lost? No. Knock on wood. Not in modern era. Although, Dr. Jeff Masters, a former hurricane hunter, a brilliant mind in the world of meteorological studies, especially tropical meteorology. He was a... That's right, Taylor. Dr. Jeff Masters was on board a hurricane hunter mission back in 1989 during Hurricane Hugo, where they were almost lost. Yeah. And he recounts the tale. I don't even know if it's still published. I read it 20 years ago. But somewhere online, I'm sure it still exists. Google, let's see. Let's Google Dr. Jeff Masters Hurricane Hugo. Okay, yeah. So, and the first thing that comes back is Hunting Hugo, the hurricane hunter's wildest ride. Okay, I suggest you read that. Very, very, very. I mean, like I said, I read it like 20 years ago, but very, very interesting stuff. Okay, all right. So, very summer pattern. No threats from the tropics here locally. The next thing that we're going to really have to watch here in Central Florida is going to be the repeat of the Florreaster, the second half of the month of July, right about when I'm going to my weather conference up in Boston, as you pointed out. So the Bay of Campeche has such a sexy sound to it, like you're speaking a foreign romantic language. I mean, it is another language. All right, people, that's all I got. Sabirs, does the BSR show anything? The BSR is kind of hinting at the Florreaster. It's not a hugely strong signal, but it's hinting at it. Yeah. All right, people, that's it. It's 8:27. Go be one with your day. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you so much for hanging out for Coffee Talk. I will see you guys and gals later on at 3:30 for the after.